Hello, everyone. I am Hannah Bailey, and this is going to be my presentation on teaching autobiography. Okay, so my past teaching experiences, student teaching at BGSU, I was one of those lucky people that got to do their whole entire undergrad, 5 years at BGSU, reading endorsement, and now I'm finishing my master's. And actually, 2 days I'll be done with my master's. It's crazy. But my student teaching experience at BGSU, I couldn't have loved more enough. My junior year, I was able to do the inclusive preschool setting, and this was so cool because BG allowed you to have a co-teacher in this experience. Um, I have mixed feelings about co-teaching, but I think everyone does. But it was a good experience for me to have it, just in case I were to later on in my career. And that was at Oakwood Elementary. It was about an hour and a little bit more than an hour drive to get there every day. And then my senior year, I was able to do third and fourth grade language arts and science. And what this looked like was I would have my homeroom was third grade, right? Because my license is only until third grade. However, I would teach third grade ELA, and then another teacher and I were paired. She had her own classroom, and we would switch, and then I would do fourth grade ELA while she did third grade math, fourth grade math. Then after lunch, of course, same thing. I would do science for third grade. She would do social studies for third grade, switch, and did the opposite. And that was at Fostoria Intermediate School in Fostoria, Ohio. However, after getting out and graduating in May of 2019, I was able to be the intervention specialist for kindergarten and first grade. Let me tell you, what a jump from third and fourth graders to this position. And honestly, it hit me in the face. And Washington Elementary is actually where I went to school. So that's really cool. And that's in my hometown, Gallipolis, Ohio, where I live now. And that is about 4 hours away from BGSU. At the bottom of Ohio on the right hand side. And I was able to teach in that position for 2 years. And then this year is my third year of teaching. And it's within the same district, but I was able to transfer to a general second grade teacher, and that's at Green Elementary. So, again, same district, just different elementary school in Gallipolis, Ohio, the same place where I was born and raised and live today. So, how in the world did I get to those experiences? Well, I'll just let you know I was not one of those students that said, because I hear a lot of these stories through my time at BG, like, I had a teacher and they inspired me to be a teacher, and I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm going to tell you what, that is the farthest from my story. So, I actually did not have a great experience as a student because I was one of those struggling readers, and in the environment that I went to school, I was always pushed off to the side. And I will tell you that truly, truly impacted me and my outlook on school. So I told myself, I actually remember sitting in an elementary school building and saying to myself, I never want to be in a school again. As soon as I graduate, I'm never coming back to a place like this. Never. I want to get out and do something else. Well, as I graduated high school, I went to BGSU. Woohoo! And I was going to the reason why I went there is, one, it's 4 hours away from my hometown, and sometimes we just need a fresh start. And I was going for their psychology department because there was such good reviews on their psychology department because I wanted to be an occupational therapist. Well, wait a minute here. That's two different things. I thought we were talking about teaching. You're exactly right. My road did not start out with teaching. So I actually went to Toledo up here by the good old BGSU, their doctorate program, when I was a sophomore in my undergrad. And actually, I remember having a moment there, a conversation with one of the professors, and she had told me, make sure that you have an undergrad degree that you fully enjoy and would be happy doing if occupational graduate school does not work out. Well, right from there, hopped in my car, went to BGSU, got some papers, changed my major all the way back in my drive, and guess what it was? Inclusive early childhood education. So, this is why I ended up changing my career, because all through the years, so that added on an extra year, that's okay. But as this experience, as I was working towards my graduate degree as an occupational therapist, I started falling in love with education, because then I realized that my path was to help students that felt like me. Not every teacher, not every student has the same experience, but I knew I had the power to create a better experience for them, and I fully enjoyed the content. I fully enjoyed my teaching experiences. So I knew it was meant for me. And honestly, I'm a very faith driven person, and I knew that it was meant for me to be a teacher because, and some reason, I put all my eggs in one basket for graduate school at the good old Ohio State University for graduate school. I got picked to be in the second round. However, they only take 40 out of 250, and I wasn't one of those. So I knew it was just meant to be for me to be a teacher. So here's my little person. I was thinking, oh yeah, occupational therapy, and then realized, oh, just kidding. So, as I said, these are just some things that, I really pondered on, that was really important to me during that time of life, because I knew everything happens for a reason, and eventually all the pieces fall into place. And, until then, we aren't always going to have life figured out perfectly. And you just have to enjoy the moments in between that gray phase. And so, I've just been enjoying life, and, just excited for this educational experience that I didn't think that I would have, and I absolutely enjoy. So, reflecting upon my experiences, like I said, my K1 intervention job has been one of the most rewarding, but also one of the most difficult, just because I always would get the comments like, well, you're not a real teacher, just because, I didn't have a general classroom. And some of those best practices that I would always use, anyways, was I do, we do, you do. And also think aloud, because at this age, it's so important to have that foundation. So I would always work on phonological awareness, letter and sound identification, all that fun stuff. And so I would always have to think aloud with the students so I could get their brain rolling to then make those skills concrete. My third and fourth grade experience was what really wanted me to come back to general education, because it was one of the most interactive and engaging experiences, and I built some of the best relationships with students, and at the end of the day, that's why I'm here. I didn't realize it at the time, of course, but I was working on some best practices as I was doing some lessons in this environment. And one of those was becoming a investigator reporter for the students, not for myself. So, for example, I had a reflective time for the students. And we had already read the story for the week, done all these activities, and now it was time to reflect before we took our test. And so the students were together collaborating, and they were all given questions. And so there was a group of four, and they had to lock in their answers together. And once everyone found their answer, locked it in together, then I would come around and unlock their answer, and they could share. And I tell you what, this is one of the best things that I fully enjoyed. I think the students enjoyed it more than I did, but I could put that to the test because I absolutely loved this. It was just fun for me as a teacher, to be honest. And this allowed them to investigate in the text and use those text sorry about that, those text features and finding those clues to find the answer of something. And so this just allowed them to gain those skills a little bit more in an interactive way that I didn't realize was a best practice. Now, my own changing and thinking. The framework of intervention, as I said, with kindergarten, first grade, is a whole different side of the world compared to the education experience for the general. So, for example, As an intervention specialist, I was always thinking differentiation within even my small group. However, this perspective is completely different from the perspective of a general education teacher. And so my change of thinking from, that third and fourth grade student teaching to my intervention back to my second grade, as I'm going into it this year, are completely different. And so I think with changing every position that you change to, in some way your thinking is going to be changed. And coming out of college, I felt like I could take on any classroom. I was so confident in myself, so confident in my skills that BG gave me, and I had a full brain of knowledge and ideas. However, as soon as I walked in that building, into my classroom for the first time, I hit this wall head on. I felt like everything I learned, everything I knew, everything I was confident about, out the window. Because now what happens? I have to apply it in real life, and sitting in a classroom or walking into a classroom that's already has everything implemented, and you're just kind of stepping into that role as student teaching. That is completely different than having your own classroom, and I completely found that out the hard way. So, as I slowly become comfortable in that school setting, that my first um, years, I started implementing my own thinking. As I became more comfortable, I just kind of brought that knowledge back out because I knew it was the best thing for students. My future hope for myself is honestly to be more confident in what I've learned is best, because it's so easy. And I know a lot of you have mentioned this in discussion boards. It's so easy to become comfortable with whatever everyone else is doing, even though they might be veteran teachers and kind of out of touch with the best practices nowadays. But I just encourage myself and everyone else to be confident in what you learned, because you're putting in this education and it's valuable. Also, I want to lead by example with implementing these best practices, because I am in a district that kind of has an older way of thinking, and I just want to be that example that stands out and says, hey, these are best practices. This is what I've learned. This is what I'm using, and it helps my students. So, and I was using some of those during student teaching, but didn't realize it. So, go BG. I hope to teach at Green Elementary with confidence and knowledge, as I mentioned, kind of those same things. Um, and then I also hope to implement read alouds, which why actually the new curriculum that we're implementing is a Fontes and Pinnell classroom. Interactive read alouds are a part of that, and shared reading and all that fun stuff. So that's something that we're going to have to use anyways, but I can also use my previous knowledge of read alouds to just make it that much more for the students. Providing choices for the students. So, for example, if I have independent work for vocabulary words, instead of giving everyone the same activity, I could provide 2 or 3 choices, most likely 2, just because that's realistic. 2 choices for the students to pick from. They'll be graded the same, and honestly, they're getting the same goal. So, that just allows them to have some choices there. Also, choices can be used for books. So, actually, this whole summer, I felt like I poured my heart and soul into my classroom library, organizing it by AR points, and just to make sure I have different genres and to provide the students different choices for their independent reading. Also, I want to provide opportunities for success for all levels. So, I've already had teachers come up to me and say, oh, you have so and so. Well, this is how low they are. Well, you know what? I made a fridge for my classroom. So, it's actually just a bulletin board, but it says our fridge. And I want to celebrate each and every student's success, and that all looks different. One thing I'm also going to implement is phonics, phonics, phonics. Phonics is everything to me personally, because of my experience in K1 intervention. It's so important. And it's so important for second graders as they move up to third grade in that reading test. Small group instruction. So with COVID, all our students have to be 3 feet away. So Sadly, I had to depart from my kidney table moving into second grade. However, I'm going to make this work no matter what because I am a firm believer in small group instruction, even if that means I'm sitting on the floor. That's okay. So, teachers, going back to your school, this is what we look like hanging on to summer, hanging on to our master's classes, just not having anything else to do, but we can do it. So, best of luck to everyone going back into the classroom this week or next week, or if you've already went. Best of luck. Just remember, excuse me, to use those best practices that we've learned. And I hope you all the best.